Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wisconsin in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I am Dan McCaleb, executive editor of the Center Square Newswire service. Joining me again today is Ben Yount, the Center Square's Wisconsin correspondent. How are you today, Ben?
It is a beautiful fall day. Finally had to wear pants. Had to break the jeans out for the first time. I'm not happy about it, but 45 degrees at 4 a.m. You got to put on pants.
Well, Ben, you better get used to it because it's only going to get colder and probably snowier before you know it.
Winter in Wisconsin. What are you going to do?
Exactly. Ben, we're recording this on Thursday, September 14th. There's been more talk this week about the possibility of Republicans at the State House considering impeachment of new Supreme Court Justice Janet Protasiewicz, who swung the court's political balance to Democrat from Republican. A couple of Republican members of the Assembly have said this week that they don't support impeachment, at least not at this time. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos saying he's asking former justices for guidance on how to proceed. Is this all just talk, Ben, or what's going on here?
This is a story that's actually evolving. So many times with what we cover in state government, you have polar opposites. And there is, as you said, a lot of talk and a lot of talk and a lot of talk. And eventually there's a resolution. One side, when you have the votes, you call the bill. So whoever has the votes does what it is that they want. This story about impeachment has been slow rolling and evolving almost by the day. It is one of these things that from just a journalism perspective, you can write a story at 10 o'clock in the morning and by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it may or may not change. We did see Representative Scott Johnson go on the record at the end of last week saying he is a no vote on Protasiewicz. And this is layered, as so many things here in Wisconsin are. Johnson said he completely believes that Protasiewicz should recuse herself from hearing cases on the state's political map and on abortion because of what she said during the campaign. But he said that he did not believe that it was proper for the Assembly to go ahead and undo the votes of 1 million people. Protasiewicz easily won election to the Wisconsin Supreme Court back in April. And as Democrats like to point out, she hasn't even ruled on a case yet, so there may not be anything to impeach. Last Sunday, the political shows here in Wisconsin, and there are a couple of them, had a number of lawmakers on, and they all talked about impeachment. That's where Joy Gobin from Hobart was on the show in Madison, and she talked around the question. The quote we have from her in our piece is that I've had very little conversation about impeachment, so I don't know everyone else's plan or focus. She went on to talk about how her focus was on tax cuts. Her focus was on helping the middle class. Her focus was on the business of the state. That was Monday. That was actually Friday and Sunday, but that was Monday's update. Tuesday, the top Republican in the Wisconsin Assembly, Speaker Robin Vos, said that he didn't want to impeach Protasiewicz, but he also wasn't going to close the door to the idea. He announced on conservative talk station in Milwaukee that he's now asking former members of the Wisconsin Supreme Court to give him advice, to give him essentially a roadmap for how an impeachment either would work or what the threshold should be. He didn't say which of the former justices he is looking to get this advice from, but Vos's explanation was, look, the Assembly absolutely has the power to do this. The Constitution says this is a role for the legislature. And he said he does not want to go down this path, but he needs a roadmap if he cannot find what he called an off-ramp. And that's where we were at the end of the day yesterday. There have been lawsuits filed, one that challenges the ability of the Assembly to impeach, saying that it would violate the voters' rights. And as Vos put it, they just need to read the Constitution to see where that goes. So is this just talk about impeachment at this point? In some ways, but it's talk that will end with a very serious vote if that's the path that Republicans choose. And don't forget, they don't have to go all the way on this, that Republicans don't actually have to impeach and then remove Protasiewicz from the court. there's a wrinkle in Wisconsin law that says the minute there is an impeachment proceeding, she can no longer hear cases. And in the worst case scenario for Democrats and Protasiewicz, in the most aggressive case scenario for conservatives and Assembly Republicans, the Assembly could simply open up an impeachment proceeding, freeze Protasiewicz, and leave her frozen until either the abortion cases or the remap cases have been heard and decided.
Wow, that would be a bold move by Republicans in the legislature. And as you told listeners last week, when it comes to the Assembly, even though there are a couple of Republicans who are currently wavering, saying they're at least not yet ready to begin impeachment proceedings and would vote against, there's a near supermajority in the Assembly, and all it would take to impeach is a simple majority. So they could afford to lose a few of their colleagues on the Republican side and still move forward and vote to impeach. Now, we certainly haven't heard from every single Republican member of the Assembly as to how they feel about the proceedings, but they could stand to lose a few. Is that right?
Yeah, there are 65 Republicans in the Assembly, 99 members, so you could easily lose more than a handful and still get your 50% plus one. One of the things that is complicating this is, and it sounded like Representative Johnson opposes the step of impeachment because it is a big step. There is this sort of Damocles hanging over the heads of Assembly Republicans. The state's Democratic Party launched an ad campaign, or announced that it is going to launch an ad campaign that's going to spend $4 million challenging these individual lawmakers when the next election comes up. State representatives in Wisconsin, and I think just about every state, are up for election every 2 years. So in 2024, they will all be on the ballot. And a $4 million campaign can buy an awful lot of ads in a place like Eau Claire or La Crosse or Rhinelander or some of the other smaller media markets in the state. And you got to remember that some of these state representative races cost, mid to low six figures. So if the Democratic Party has $4 million to spend, they can come in and run an awful lot of attack ads against individual Republican lawmakers. And there may be some lawmakers who would avail themselves of the opportunity to not vote on this or to vote no on impeachment while still getting the goal of freezing Protasiewicz, because they may want to avoid that spending spree come next election time.
All interesting stuff, Ben. As usual, thank you for your insight into this very important story, but we are out of time. As you mentioned earlier, this story can change or update on the dime, so listeners can keep up with all these updates at thecentersquare.com. For Ben Yount, I'm Dan McCaleb. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe.